How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Staggering dress.
It's just a shame I can't walk in it, really. Tumbling down the stairs.
Now, 3 questions I've got to ask you.
Okay.
Right. Is it true that David wears your knickers? First question. Second, is it true that you wear the trousers in your house? And the third, are you anorexic? Now, those are the 3 questions everybody in the audience out there and the media are all eager to hear your views on. David wearing your knickers to start with.
Well, I'm the only person that actually wears my knickers.
You are.
But if you'd like to borrow them, I can see the headlines now. Parky borrows Posh's knickers.
That'd be nice, all right.
Good.
But it was a joke.
It was a joke.
That went wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the problem that I have a lot of the time. You know, I do open my mouth and I do say things, and a lot of the time it's completely taken out of context. I mean, as if he'd wear my knickers, come on.
Wouldn't fit.
They wouldn't fit.
It'd be a worry if they were a tight fit, wouldn't it?
Does David actually, I mean, when you come home, when you get home at night, when David comes home, does he say, what have you said today?
Yes,
does
he does.
You drop me in it again?
Yes, he does.
He does it.
Yeah, so I've got to be very careful.
All right, okay. Now, the business about you dominating him in the house, in the sense of being, you know, you wear the trousers, you're the bossy one. Is that right too?
No, I mean, David's a very, very strong character. I think a lot of people think that he's not, just because, you know, he doesn't do a lot of interviews, you know, he doesn't, even when he does, you know, he doesn't speak up a lot of the time, and I'm the one with a big mouth, so a lot of people think that I do, but he's a very strong character, and he would never, ever do anything that he didn't want to do, or wear anything he didn't want to wear. You know, I mean, the skirts and the, you know, the headgear and everything, none of that has actually been my idea. I'd like to take the credit for it, but it wasn't.
No, it's having fun, for God's sake. Yeah. I mean, because he's a footballer, and it's this macho world of football. I mean, you dress like that, then there's something untoward and wrong. Yeah. But as far as you're concerned, this thing in the press about you, an anorexia. Now, are you anorexic?
No, I'm not.
How do you know that?
I know it because I eat. Anorexics don't eat.
You eat regularly?
Yeah, no, I mean, I have a perfectly healthy diet. And what upset me mostly when all of that was actually in the press is that, you know I'm fine. My family know that I'm fine, but there are lots of young children out there who look up to the Spice Girls, you know, and think, goodness, you know, are you meant to be thin? You know, I mean, I look the way that I look now. I used to be a lot bigger, and I lost a lot of weight after having Brooklyn, but this is just the way that I look now. And I mean, it did worry me.
I mean, did you go to a doctor? Do you think you might be anorexic?
No, I did go to the doctors because it worried me, because I started to get paranoid. So I went to the doctors and I said, look, is there anything wrong with me? You know, I wanted to be totally checked out because I was eating perfectly fine, exactly, you know, as I always have done. And I was losing weight. And they just said that's just something that happens, you know, when you have children. My mum lost 3.5 stone after she had my brother, so it's hereditary.
Do you feel now you want to put some weight on?
I think that I could probably do with putting on weight, but I just eat what I eat, and this is the way I am.
Never get closer to actually give you a diet, sheet.
What do you eat?
What do I? I have breakfast, then I have a lunch, and then I have dinner, and I have a snack in between.
Oh, that sounds all right.
Pretty normal.
How many lettuce leaves?
No.
But do you feel that when you go out now, say to a restaurant, that you're being looked at, you're being inspected in a sense for what you eat?
Yeah, I mean, that is quite embarrassing. I was out at dinner the other night and I'm sitting there and I ordered a bowl of pasta or something like that, and the man said, would you like a large bowl or a small bowl? You just feel such an idiot. I've just got used to it now. I don't care what anybody says.
I suppose every time you go to the loo as well, they think you're going there to chuck up or whatever.
Yeah. Well, this is another thing. You know, we were out at dinner the other day, and I was absolutely busting for the toilet. And it's quite sad to think that you can't even go to the toilet because if you do, people are going to think you're throwing up.
Well, what about the public reaction to you? Because there's a lovely story in research about you going into Boots to buy a car seat for the baby.
Yeah. What happened is I needed to get a new car seat for Brooklyn. And he had to weigh like 21 pounds or something before he could sit in this car seat. So I went into Boots and I had no idea how much he weighed. And there were no baby scales around, so I stood on these scales and I would see how much I weighed, then I'd get off and then get back on with Brooklyn, so I knew if he was heavy enough for this car seat. And as I'm standing on the scales, there's all these people walking past saying, oh, I hope you're putting on a bit of weight there. I hope you're eating, how much do you weigh? And you get a little receipt thing as well when you get off. And at first I didn't realise, and I walked away. My mum said, you better get that, or that will be in the...
In the newspaper.
Oh, it would have been, yeah.
Can you imagine?
It's a very good way of weighing things. I do that with my Christmas ham.
You're right.
Not in boots for chemists, sure.
No, on the pier, you know. We speak your weight.
But what about, I mean, it is extraordinary. I mean, all of us here, you know, are known by the public, but you've got this extraordinary kind of fame, which has people camped outside your house and going through your dustbins. In your case, 2 dustbins.
Yeah.
I mean, how inhibiting is it? How worrying is it for you? I mean, what do you feel about it?
I think that it's a lot more worrying when, you know, obviously because I've got a baby, you know, because there's been a lot of stuff in the press about, you know, people wanting to kidnap Brooklyn as well.
Was that serious? I mean,
yeah, that was serious.
It was.
I did have threats.
You
And I
did.
mean, the police are fantastic, and, you know, Brooklyn has a bodyguard living now. But it is something that's really worrying. That's every parent's worst nightmare, you know, something happening to their child. So that's scary. But that was what really freaked me out, I think, about the whole weight issue. It wasn't actually the weight issue in the end. It was just the fact that in the past, if I'd been in the press, I'd been with the Spice Girls or I'd been with David. And for the first time, it was just me. I was completely singled out. And I think it was the whole attention, just the fact that people were that interested in me, that kind of freaked me out more than anything,
well,
really.
I mean, it gives some idea of distorted sense of news values. The fact that you had a baby took the war and the conflict in the Balkans off the front page, and it was the lead news on the TV. So, I mean, there's a strange sort of perverted logic at work here, isn't there? I mean, it's quite dangerous, too, because there are obsessive people out there.
It's you know, it is really worrying and it is really strange, and I'm one of these people that, you know, I go home at night and I put on my pyjamas and I sit in front of the telly with my mum and dad and David, and I never think, oh, you know. So you don't actually realise quite how interested people
Victoria,
are.
you say that, and yet you see, there'll be a lot of people out there watching who would say, well, that's not really true, because, you know, we see them in the newspapers, we see them out glamorous, all poshed up. We see this couple who invited this magazine in to their wedding and, you know, took £1 million for it or wherever it might be. So in a sense, they would say they're inviting that kind of scrutiny.
Yeah. You know, whenever, so I go out, maybe if we go out for dinner or if we go to a club, you know, you have to continue with your life. Yes, there's going to be photographers, but you can't hide away completely. We don't ask to be in the newspapers. You know, I get photographed if I go to Tesco's or Marks and Spencer's or anywhere like that. It's not just going places where you know you're going to get photographed. You know, and talking about the magazine getting paid for, for my wedding.
People say you did ask for them to go to your wedding, so therefore you booked the publicity, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, you know, exactly, that was my next
£1
question.
million.
If we asked everybody out there, if you got offered a lot of money for pictures that were going to be in the press anyway, if they weren't in OK Magazine, they'd have been in all the newspapers, they'd have been in another magazine, then who out there wouldn't have accepted the money and said, thank you, nice pictures that I can control? You know, I think everybody out there would do it. I'd have been daft, come on.
Taken it daft, I agree with you.
Yeah,
If
but
it was getting married for it, somebody offered it.
the baby changed everything in your life in more ways, because, I mean, apart from the fact you had a baby for the first time, it also was that moment in time when the focus of the press did come in on you, didn't it? You started off by wanting to be famous. That was your ambition. You wanted to make a name for yourself. Looking at what you've got at this kind of fame, are you glad you had that ambition? Is this what you expected? Is this what you wanted?
I always wanted to be famous, and I am the luckiest girl in the world. But I'd say that it's got to a stage now where it's gone beyond that. It's gone beyond everything that I ever expected. I mean, every day, I mean, literally, you know, you pick up a newspaper and there's either me and David or me or David in the newspaper. And it has gone beyond just being famous. It's almost like a joke
I
now,
don't suppose you could have
really.
imagined being as famous as you became. I mean, there's fame and fame, isn't there? But, you know, you are sort of world famous, I suppose. So, I mean, it is a level which... but, I mean, you can sort of not read the newspapers. That's the only thing I think you can do to sort of like is actually not read them, so it doesn't impinge on your consciousness. So if somebody says you're on the front page of the Daily Mirror, it's hard to do. It's very difficult. But if you don't actually see it, then it lessens its effect. It's very difficult to do, but I think that's about the only thing you can do.
I think so, but then also, you know, the media controls what everybody thinks, okay? People pick up a newspaper, they read something, and 9 times out of 10 they're going to believe it. So I'd like to be aware of what people, you know, what people are thinking.
There was a guy that, I better not mention his name, there's a guy that I had on, we haven't got news for you, Elvis Costello.
All right.
But, no, it's not a bad story. It's not a bad story about him particularly. But he said I think he just separated from his wife or something, and he was with his wife now, or whatever, or his girlfriend at the time. He was on this train coming back from Liverpool, where he was born, and he saw it was in the Daily Mirror. It was page 2 of the Daily Mirror, and he saw this woman get on opposite the train, and he thought, well, she's going to turn to page 2. She's going to look at me. It's going to be really embarrassing. What are we going to do? She got the Daily Mirror. She went like that. She went like that. She went like that. She got to the horoscopes and started reading them, and she didn't even notice.
Yes.
So I mean, it's a big story because it's you on the front page, but not necessarily to everybody else.
Yeah, but you see,
But it's difficult to know because you're not.
Sure.
You know.
But there is the other problem too. I mean, how do you ignore photographers hanging outside your house?
Oh,
how do you
it's a
ignore
nightmare.
people following you wherever you go?
Yeah, that's
I mean, this
a
is
nightmare.
another dimension to it.
Yeah,
that
sure.
I think, you know, it's all very well saying, well, you know, that's the way it is, but it didn't ought to be that way.
No, it's. I mean, that's
my
that's
view.
my input. That's the worst thing. I think people outside your house.
Yeah.
I think, you know, it is very difficult, and, you know, we all pick up newspapers and see horrible story about us and think, you know, and hate the people that have written that. But at the end of the day, when I first started out with the Spice Girls, I needed the media as much as, I don't know, now they use me. It's kind of, it's like a, you know, you scrub my back and I'll scrub yours in a way. As much as it's a pain in the neck, you do.
So in a sense,
Yeah, it's a quid pro quo.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a
exactly.
fair trade-off, you reckon? Because I was going to ask you, I mean, would there be, I mean, given what you said before, would there be conceivably a point where in the future you and David might say, we've had enough of this, you know, I don't know where you might go, the moon perhaps, or Mars, but, you know, we're going to get out of this.
Yeah.
Have you ever thought about that?
I've often thought it would be nice to go somewhere where we were left alone a bit, yeah. That has crossed my mind.
I'm sure.
But I better not say that.
Well, I mean, it'll have to be the headlines that you're leaving the country tomorrow in the papers, that's right.
But at the moment, I mean, I'm very close to my family, and I couldn't leave my family. And David's very happy where he is.
Yes.
So I thought I'd clear that up.
Yeah, it's better about that quick.
Yeah. Are Manchester United officials, the manager, Mr.
Yeah.
Ferguson, is he a fan of yours?
I don't know.
Yes, you do. Are you a fan of his?
I think he's very good at his job.
You
He's
do?
very good at his job. I don't really know him. You know, he's very professional,
Yes.
and he does his job. But you know, when there's social events and things like that, he doesn't ever.
You've
get
not
involved.
really got involved in the world of football, have you?
Oh, no.
Such? Is that because you don't want to, or because you think it's better that you leave David alone up there?
Until I met David, it never interested me at all. I mean, I kind of know a bit what's going on now just because of him, but I don't find it very interesting. Really.
Boring?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's yes, I would agree with that. Does David know you think it's boring?
Yeah, he does.
does.
But it's okay because, you know, myself and Brooklyn, we both go to the games and we sit in the creche and play with toys while Daddy's playing on the television.
The other thing too, of course, again, which is different about your situation, and you've had a bit of this actually, Paul, when you were married to Caroline, is that you have, when two of you are famous, you get the double bubble, don't you?
Yeah.
I mean, there are 2 dustbins to go through, aren't there?
Yeah.
And that's...
It makes it far more interesting a story. I don't know why,
Yes.
but it's 2 people together, you know.
Yes. It must put a strain on a relationship, though.
Yeah, I should imagine it would.
Don't you dead that. He's doing Victoria Beckham on me.
Do they really go through your dustbins?
No, probably, I don't know. They sort of do, though. I mean, there's a guy that's been arrested for going through private eyes dustbins.
That's
and all
right,
sort of
yes,
stuff.
it-
You know,
I wish somebody goes through my dustbins. They get a horrible shock.
So generally speaking, you're able to look at what's happening to you and be fairly philosophical about it, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's really bizarre. You know, if you think about it, I'm the only Spice Girl that up until now, I haven't had a single out, I haven't had an album out, I haven't had a book. You know, all I've done is a documentary that I thought nobody was going to watch. That's all I've had, and yet every single day, virtually, I've been in the newspaper. And for why, I haven't done anything particularly interesting. So
I think it's the marriages. You'll have to get the others to marry other famous people.
Yeah. You're meant to say it just because you're really interesting. That wasn't the answer we wanted.
That thought never occurred to me.
It's probably because you haven't done all these things, you see, so you're not trying.
Yeah,
People
they're
love it if
waiting
you're
for
not
it.
trying.
Yeah.
You see. They're passionate to know what you've got up your sleeve.
Yeah.
Would you like to be like Clarissa, you know, in sort of large and comfortable and happy with your life, you know, contented? I'm not saying it's a precondition of being happy, but she seems to me as being somebody who's very happy in her own skin, so to speak.
You know what I think? I think when you've got children, or you've got a family that you love so much around you, I think the last thing that any sane person would ever do is put their health at risk. So as long as you're happy and you're healthy, that really is all that matters. I mean, being on the front pages of newspapers and magazines and singing songs and everything is fantastic, but it's not going to last forever. What is going to last forever, hopefully, is your family. So whether you're big, small, whatever,
yes.
as long as you're healthy, yes. That's all that matters.
I hope you're not suggesting that I'm not healthy.
No, I'm saying it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
as long as
I
you
agree
are, you know, the last thing you want to do is put yourself at risk, isn't it?
Yes.
That's what made it hard for me as well.
Yes.
If I'm saying I'm an anorexic, I'm thinking I've got a lovely family and a gorgeous baby boy. The last thing I'd want to do is not be around to see him.
Yes. When you were in Promise, you of course, in that situation, there were people in there with eating disorders, weren't there?
Yes, yes. Now, I shared a room with a girl who was severely anorexic, poor child, and in fact died. I think she was about 5 or 6 stone when finally, when they released her from hospital to come into Promise, and she just didn't make it. I mean, a lot of anorexics don't make it. It's a horrendous illness, a horrible disease. And I mean, the awful thing with an eating disorder, with me, you know, I just don't drink. That makes it sound simpler than it is, but I mean, I don't, you know, I don't have to confront myself with the substance that I'm addicted to. But with eating disorders, you know, you have to eat 3 times a day, and it must be a terrible thing.
But I mean, what was the, from the people that you knew there, were there classic sort of symptoms? I mean, what kind of family did they come from?
Well, like any addict, or they came from all sorts of different families.
Yes,
I mean, this particular girl I'm referring to had, you know, had a horrendous family background, but there were girls from perfectly ordinary backgrounds, yes. Perfectly happy backgrounds, and I mean, most anorexics knew more about nutrition than any nutritionist I've ever met. I mean, they could tell you exactly how much phosphate there was in a lettuce leaf, or how much nitrogen in a beetroot and things like that. It was really quite frightening.
We've been illuminated.
But what's horrible as well is people were actually saying, I am an anorexic, and that is like saying somebody is dying of some hideous, you know, illness. I mean, how can you do that?
It's obviously got you really annoyed.
I was really annoyed because I think there are so many young children that look up to us.
Yes.
You know.
Yes, that is very worrying, because then people will read it, and the children will misunderstand it, and they'll think, oh, well, that's the way to be famous, I'll become anorexic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, you've been off today talking about your child. You've been looking for a school.
I have.
It's a bit young, isn't it, to go to school?
No, do you know, there's only one place left in his class as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah. A lot of parents, he's nearly a year.
Oh.
A lot of parents...
School is he going to?
No, it's just, you know, a lot of parents put their names down for school before they actually are even born nowadays.
Are you going to send him to a posh school?
I'm going to send him to a private school in the country.
That means posh.
No, I mean, I'm not going to send him to Eton or anywhere like that, but, you know, I'm putting his name down at lots of different schools, you know, up north, down south, because, I mean, whoever... You know, who knows where you're
You have to be even-handed, don't you?
I've got to be so bloody diplomatic all the time, it drives me mad.
Because he said looking for a school in Newcastle, then he's going to join Newcastle United.
Yeah, exactly.
But down here, then he's going to join Spurs.
Exactly, and goodness, what would happen if I said that I'm looking for a school in Spain or something?
There's a couple of...
Real Madrid.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
I know a couple of good schools near Barnsley, and we could do it decently. You get a cheap house there, too.
Good food, too. The heartland of food is Yorkshire.
That's right. So what about the other business of yourself and your career now? I mean, you did that documentary, but that was a bit of a joke and a laugh, and you enjoyed doing it, fine. But what else? What about acting? Because originally you wanted to be an actress, didn't you?
Yeah, I wanted to be an actress when I actually went to a drama school. And then I left the drama school and I met up with the other girls and became the Spice Girls. So I never continued with the acting. But whilst being in the Spice Girls, I was still taking a lot of acting classes, doing a lot of reading, a lot of scripts. So acting is something that I definitely want to do, you know, films. But I'm also going to be writing an album myself.
Are you?
Yes.
A solo album?
Yes.
Oh, good.
I am.
Huh?
So, I mean, I am in a difficult position to a certain extent. So many people are very cynically sitting there saying, OK, come on then, so show us what you're going to do. So for me, it's got to be the right part.
And what about the Spice Girls? I mean, have they still got legs as such?
Yeah.
I mean, as a career? Yeah?
We've half written an album. And, you know, we've all got our own individual projects as well. But then we get together and carry on writing. You know, and so many people are saying, so when's it going to be out?
Well, there's no urgency. I mean, you've all got all the money in the world, haven't you, really? So, I mean, it doesn't actually matter. You ain't going to starve, anything like that.
That's the thing. I mean, people are saying, you know, why isn't the album out? You know, are the Spice Girls finishing?
Yes.
We've got nothing to prove now, you know. The album will be out when the album's out. You know, we're all really good friends. We're all still working together, but we're doing our own solo projects as well.
It's strange you should say that you've got nothing to prove. How old are you? 24, 25?
25.
Yeah, and it's just a strange thing to say that. And I wondered, you know...
I didn't have my first date till I was 24.
But you're a good Catholic boy. Yeah.
First date, a wonderful euphemism. When are you on your first date?
Is that true?
Yeah, so why would I lie about it? True, yeah.
He's made up for his sins, though.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Once you discovered what it was for.
Yes.
I mean, your address book.
I'll tell you the other thing, too, that I wanted to check on, a bit of tabloid ease here coming as well. They told, we read, that you had a boob job done.
I haven't had a boob. If I'd have had a boob job, I'd have had them done bigger than this. That's all I can say.
Yeah, but that was in the papers, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And what do you think when you read that? You saw
Well,
that?
it was quite embarrassing, actually, because I was on holiday, actually, at the time. And someone phoned me, and I hadn't told anybody where I was going. They phoned me and said, oh, I hear you're in Mustique. And I said, well, actually, I'm skiing. They said, it doesn't look like you're skiing. And I'm always really paranoid. You know, I don't like being photographed when I'm on holiday and I'm with my family. And apparently they did like a huge, great big close-up down my cleavage and said, well, no, I mean, I wasn't. I was, you know, I was sunbathing, but I told everybody that I was somewhere else. A huge, great big close-up down my top and said I had a boob job.
I get death threats, you know.
You do?
Oh, yeah.
You don't.
From vegetarians.
Do you?
The best one I had was from chicken's lib. And it was perfectly true.
Not the old country and western singer.
Possibly. It was the most wonderful card of this turkey cock in full wattle. And on the back it had chicken's lib, pledged to protect chickens. So I rang them up. And I said, what wonderful cards. I said, I'd like to buy some. And they said, yes, madam, what's your name? And I said, Clarissa Dixon Wright. And there was a sort of pause down the other end of it. And I said, well, you see, we're on the same side. I mean, I want chickens to have a good life because they taste so much nicer. I never got the cards. But it's true. I mean, it wasn't Chicken's Lib that sent me the death threat. It was somebody who had their cards.
I think you'll get the headlines tomorrow, not Victoria, actually.
Oh, I don't know.
Anyway, yeah, thank you very much indeed. I much enjoyed that. Victoria Beckham. My thanks to Paul Murren, Clarissa Dixon Wright and Victoria Beckham. Next week my guests will be Alexis Sale, David Blunkett and Martin Kemp. Until then, from all of us here, a very good night. Good night.